Good evening. This business meeting of the Board of Education of the Cleveland Municipal School District will come to order. Mr. Stockdale, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Ellicott,
Here.
Mr. Billups, Mr. Briggs,
Here.
Ms. Jones, Mr. Jones, Ms. LeBron, Ms. Peak, Dr. Sridhar, Mrs. Welchow.
Here.
There are 8 members present.
Thank you. I ask everyone who wishes to rise and participate in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. The chair will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the board leadership development sessions of November 22nd and November 23rd, and the board work session of December 3rd, 2024.
So moved.
Second. Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. The minutes are approved. All right, as many of you have heard, or at least probably noticed during roll call, we are pleased to welcome 3 new members to the Board of Education this evening. Over the course of the past week, Mayor Justin Bibb filled 3 vacancies on the board by appointing and administering the oath of office to Jerry Billups, Ivory Jones III, and Caroline Peak. Mr. Billups is a graduate of John Marshall High School and holds a Bachelor of Science from the University of Toledo. He works as Juvenile Detention Alternative Initiative Coordinator for Cuyahoga County Juvenile Court. He is a parent of 4 children, one of whom is a CMSD graduate and 3 of whom are current CMSD students. Mr. Billups is also deeply engaged with grassroots community service in addition to serving as a wrestling coach and volunteering at football games in the community. He's also an active member of the Ward 16 Club. He's a lifelong Clevelander and lives in the West Park neighborhood. Reverend Jones serves as pastor of Grace Missionary Baptist Church. He is the parent of 3 adult children who attended CMSD schools. Reverend Jones attended both the Cleveland and East Cleveland public schools and is a graduate of East Cleveland's Shaw High School and went on to study commercial arts and graphic design at Cuyahoga Community College and the Cleveland Institute of Art. He lives in the Union Miles neighborhood. And last but not least, Ms. Peak recently retired after 21 years as public service manager of the Collinwood branch of the Cleveland Public Library. She previously worked as program coordinator for the Cleveland Summit on Education. Ms. Peak is a longtime school district volunteer, serving on a number of committees, including the Community Oversight Committee, the Bond Accountability Commission, the Superintendent's Advisory Board, and several PTAs and school community councils. She's the parent of 3 adult children who attended CMSD schools. Ms. Peak holds an associate degree from Cuyahoga Community College, a Bachelor of Arts from Myers University, and a Master of Library Science from Kent State University. She lives in the Collinwood neighborhood of Cleveland. Welcome, Mr. Billups, Reverend Jones, and Ms. Peak. We all look forward to working with you, and we're so excited to have you here for your first board meeting. I'd like to invite each of you to say a few words. We'll go in alphabetical order. Mr. Billups.
I will be first. Thank you all so much for the introduction. I really appreciate it. I'm so blessed and grateful to be able to be a part of this board. I do realize the impact that a great public school district can have on a community and a city. And I just want to help be a part of the work that helps drive our district in the right direction to continue to educate the best kids in the country.
Reverend Jones.
Thank you to the chair and to our CEO and to the entire board. I'm Pastor Ivory Jones III in the community for over 30 years pastoring, and just thanking God for my family and my wife who is with me today. Our children was reared up in the Cleveland school system, and we're excited about being a part of working with this team to help do what we can to enhance and advance our school system the best we can. Just grateful to be here.
Ms. Peak?
Good evening, everyone. My motto is I live a life of service, and this is just a continuation of that as I've worked for several years in supporting not only students but our community, and I really feel that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so we still want to make sure that we are helping to lessen the struggles of the school system by making sure that we continue with the progress that's already been started. And we just want to, so proud to have this opportunity to give back to the community to continue that life of service. Thank you.
Thank you all, and welcome again. All right, next, I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Warren Morgan to present this evening's CEO report. Dr. Morgan?
Thank you so much, Chair Ellicott, and it's great to be here this evening. I know this is our last board meeting of the calendar year before we go on a much well-deserved holiday break. So whatever you celebrate this holiday, or if you don't celebrate anything, it's a time of reflection as we come on the end of the year and being grateful. I always talk about opening up with an attitude of gratitude for life, for those who are in our lives, and for the work that we get to do to serve. So hearing so much about service, that is definitely the attitude I'm entering into, and hope that we have that on top of all of our minds as we enter into this break. A few things that I want to share with the board on this CEO report. So a couple of things are just tactical, so I have a couple of announcements, and then teeing up a little bit more of our work around long-term planning because we've been talking about this for a while, and as we enter into 2025, this is going to be a big part of the work that we're doing, not only as a CMSD team, but as a board, and we'll be talking about it more during board meetings. So first and foremost, talking about the holiday season, these are some of the things we're doing district-wide. And of course, there are so many things that are taking place in and out of our schools. So check with your school leader and your school calendar to find out what holiday events are taking place at your own building. But I'm excited to be participating in our all-city winter concert tomorrow evening. That's at 6:30 p.m. at the East Technical High School. I was practicing with our scholars. I dusted off my tuba and was practicing with the scholars today, and really looking forward to our concert. I have three numbers I'll be doing with the concert band, and one number I'll be doing with our orchestra. So really looking forward to that. So please come out and check us out tomorrow at East Tech at 6:30. Our scholars have been working really hard. I believe it's not only our bands, but we have our choirs, and I believe some dance performances as well. And so thankful to all of the educators who helped with that, and also to Jeffrey Allen, who leads our fine arts district-wide. We also have the winter solstice with the hors d'oeuvres that are taking place at the Executive Grill. That party is on December 19th. And then we also have the East Tech horticulture holiday sale. So this is all taking place at East Tech, where poinsettias are on sale. We have red and pink and white and some that are speckled, and that is this Friday. So come check out these events, and these are some things that are taking place district-wide. Also, as we enter into this season, it is the season for sometimes inclement weather, which is always very tough days and very challenging days to figure out what we're going to do around calling school, or whether we'll be open or not. I want to remind everyone that we do have our inclement weather protocol. So we gathered all those FAQs in feedback, and we have a protocol that is posted on our website. The decision is not exact science, so there's a lot that goes into that, but this protocol talks a little bit about our decision-making process. But one thing I remember hearing feedback last year when we called a snow day pretty late in the morning. I think we had called it at one point around like 6 a.m. or when all the announcements came out. Some of them were as late as 7 a.m. was to make sure we can notify our families, our scholars, as well as our educators as soon as possible. So on Thursday, even when we had the weather report, we announced the day before on Wednesday that we intended to be open. And so where possible, we will make those decisions early so that families, educators, staff can make a decision and plan accordingly. So where we can, we will be getting that information to you sooner. And as always, in the event that we have to make a decision, we will try to do that by 5:30 at the latest. But as we did on last Wednesday, we made a decision the day before, put that announcement out, and we will try to intend to get that information as soon as possible. But check out our inclement weather guide. I know for those families that called with issues, several of them I spoke to on the phone and followed up with calls. So we appreciate your calls and your feedback. It only makes us better. One of my personal core values and one of the things that we work on is continuous improvement. So that's all we can do and all we can ask of our scholars is to get better. So that's just some information. Please check that out on the website. So now on to long-term planning. So one of the things we've been talking about for a while is long-term planning, and this is a big part of the work that we're going to be doing in 2025. The definition for long-term planning is twofold. Making sure we increase student experience while also putting our district on a path to financial sustainability. So while we're doing long-term planning, those are the goals of long-term planning. Increasing the student experience while also putting our district on a path to financial sustainability. And I'll talk a little bit about the work we've been doing. We got a chance to present this information to our board not too long ago, and we'll be discussing them more during our public board meetings just to make sure we have this information out. So when we think about the student experience, there's many different things and many different inputs that we look at. We look at student input, staff feedback. We look into community input when we think about what a vibrant student experience looks like. We also look into best practice research. And then we also look at the experts around the field in terms of what other districts are doing. And this is work that every system, when I talk to many superintendent CEOs, chancellors of school districts across the country, this is work that they're all looking at to make sure that students have the most vibrant student experience as possible while also thinking about the district finances, thinking about footprint, and also thinking about enrollment. All of these things are combined together, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of these inputs that we're looking into for student experience. When we think about the experience of our scholars, it's not just what happens in a moment in time. We have to think about the experience of our scholars within a 13, sometimes plus year span. From the moment our scholars enter us in pre-K, sometimes as early as pre-K, to the moment they graduate. The experiences that we curate as a system and the student experience we provide them all is about the work that we're doing to provide our scholars the opportunities to be vibrant citizens post-graduating for high school. So we're thinking about this throughout the stages. It's not just a high school strategy. It's not just a pre-K strategy. It is a holistic pre-K through 12 continuum of strategies of thinking about that profile of a graduate. And those are the things that we're working on as a system and making sure we provide that high quality experience. When we think about the student experience, these are the 4 key elements. Now, there are many different inputs that we look into, but there are 4 key elements that we look at when we think about a student experience. 1, career pathways for post-secondary readiness. That's not just in our high schools. Career pathways for post-secondary readiness, as I'll explain in a moment, even begins in our elementary schools. And we'll talk about what that looks like. Opportunities for our scholars to explore their co-curricular passions and making sure that we're providing those co-curricular experiences that allow our students to explore. Supported teachers and staff, because it's our educators that are delivering the student experience, and if our educators are not feeling supported, if our educators are not feeling connected, we will not be able to deliver that high-quality experience. So we must look at the experience of our educators and our staff, and then also making sure we have buildings that are worthy of delivering the high-quality experience. So let's look at these elements of the student experience. First, when we think about post-secondary readiness, it is looking at making sure, one, that we have safe and welcoming schools. I just had the opportunity to have lunch and learns with several of our high school scholars, And hearing from our high school scholars that many of them actually feel that their school is safe and they feel that CMSD is safe. What they talked about were anecdotes of getting to and from school, which of course is still part of their school experience. But when we met with our scholars and doing these lunch and learns, we asked scholars on a scale of 1 to 5 how safe do they feel they're building, with 5 being high and 1 being low. And there were quite a few 4s and 5s. So that means that the work that our educators, our safety and security team is doing in our schools is working, but they also still talked about instances of getting to school, instances of after school that we have to continue to still work on. And we're working with the city and many other people to make sure we deliver on that. But also a post-secondary ready curriculum is high quality curriculum. We already are making sure that we have a high quality ELA curriculum. Our schools have high quality math curricula within our schools. We talk about access to Algebra 1 in 8th grade. So access to Algebra 1 in 8th grade, we know that that's a gatekeeper. And so that's really important that our scholars have access to Algebra 1. Right now, of all of our elementary schools, I think we have 63 right now. Only 5 of those elementary schools are offering Algebra 1. And so we have to think about how do we expand that experience across the board. Exposure to STEM. Exposure to college and career pathways so that when students are graduating from high school, they have a diploma and a credential that they can graduate with. Work-based learning opportunities. I know we're working with the mayor's office to ensure that every CMSD scholar has access to work-based learning experiences, but this is all part of a post-secondary readiness, a high-quality post-secondary ready curriculum. We have pockets of this within our system. There's some schools that are doing this well, and then we have some schools that are not able to offer this. And so we have to look at how do we make sure all students have access to this at scale. We must talk about the co-curricular activities and passions. So what does it look like to have access to playing an instrument? So as I mentioned, I'm playing with our scholars, and there's some of our scholars who do play an instrument. But right now, the way our fine arts are set up, we have some students that learn to play an instrument early on, but they can't continue it on when they go to high school because it's not offered. Or vice versa. There are kids that want to do choir, do band, but they can't do it. Their school doesn't offer it. And one of those lunch and learns, I was meeting with a young lady from Davis, and she said, when I chose the school, my parents chose a school that they thought was safe and was a good school, but I don't want to go into aviation. She said, I really want a choir, and my school doesn't offer that. And so we have to think about these other co-curricular passions. How do we allow our scholars to explore that as well? How do we have access to sports within our schools, foreign language at a certain level so that students can learn a foreign language? These are all things that we must look at in the student experience. When we think about a supported staff, right now we have several, I wouldn't even say small schools. One of our partners who we were talking with said it's almost so small that in some cases can't even operate. We have some schools that are not able to offer even the core curriculum. We have some elements of the core curriculum just because they're staffed, they don't have the staffing where it's needed. We have some schools that there's a teacher that they're the only teacher that teaches their grade level subject. So when we talk about team planning or teachers actually taking different parts of the lesson to lesson plan or co-teach, we're not able to do that in schools where there's a teacher that they're the only teacher in the building that teaches second grade. So what does it look like to make sure that staff have the support that they need? Not only the support that we're providing as a system or that their school leader is providing, but also that there's enough work within the system that they can actually collaborate and work together. These are things that we have to look at when we're thinking about supported teachers and staff. And they're parts of that we need to be providing as a system. But after that, when we provide what we need to for our educators, we need to get out their way and let them do their work. And that's when we talk about the autonomy of doing the job. We have many brilliant educators. How do we support them with the work they need to do so they can do their brilliant job and we can get out the way? So this is the work that we need to think about when we think about supported educators and staff. And then finally, buildings that are conducive for learning. Some of this is 21st century learning spaces, making sure that there's adequate technology, making sure that our buildings have air conditioning, they're climate controlled. We just did a facility study. There was a part of this facility study that was done prior, and then we just did another part of this facility study, I think on 40 of our buildings, to give each of our buildings a building condition score, to look at not only was it recently renovated or not, where actually these buildings land when it comes to their building conditions. And so we'll be looking forward to getting that information and sharing that as part of how we can look at this full experience. And I know we don't have that information yet, but those are different things we're looking at so that we can look at all of our buildings more holistic. All right, so when you put together all of these elements of the student experience, it talks about making sure we have well-rounded graduates. Graduates that have a high-quality curriculum, we're able to explore their passions, we're in a safe and well-run environment, and then also have educators that we're loving and working well together. So this is the work that we're doing together and we need to do with the community when we think about this student experience. And I shared some anecdotes of, we have pockets across our system where different parts of these elements of the student experience are hitting, but we don't have enough where all of the elements of the student experience are hitting, and we want to make sure we capture that. We also want to make sure we capture what goes into the choices that our families make when choosing a high school, and making sure scholars are well informed of those choices and have those options within their schools. So if you think about the definition for long-term planning, one part is student experience, the other part is finances. So there's a lot of work we've been doing to make sure that we can work on our finances. We did our deficit reduction plan last year. Of course, we had the levy and the bond. There are future budget updates that we're thinking to support schools in a much more equitable way. But long-term planning is a big part of the work we could do collectively together with the boards. The board will be voting on our plan that we're putting forth to actually increase student experience while putting the district on the path to financial sustainability. This is the definition we talked about what the goal of long-term planning is. Improve student experience and outcomes while achieving financial sustainability. Many of you have already seen our 5-year forecast, so grateful for the levy and the bond that was just passed. And this is the 5-year forecast and our future outlook that we just looked at a few board meetings ago and was approved by this board. So if you look at this, over the next several years, we end the year, that's that bottom row, we end the year with a positive balance. That is what the state of Ohio asks us to end the year with a positive balance. But when you start to look at school year 27-28, we would be in the negative by $96 million if we do nothing. So this work that we're doing now is to help us move forward and make our numbers better. There are other inputs. There's work we could do in terms of advocating for state, more state aid in areas. There's work that we can be doing to go after more dollars, and those are all things that are on the table, but the areas we're going to be mainly focusing on are the things within our locus of control, and that is long-term planning. The work we could be doing as a system to increase student experience or improve student experience while also thinking about our costs. You've seen this chart. The gray line going up are our expenses over time. So expenses continue to grow with inflation and other things that happen over time. The blue line is the revenue that we actually bring in. It flattens out. The levy has helped us. It makes us that orange line. So we are closing the gap, but we have more work to do. And so we're hoping with long-term planning, you will see the gap between the orange and the gray close. And that's the work we're going to be doing collectively together. So what's the path forward? 2025 is going to be busy. There's a lot of work and many different inputs we can do to look at this. And there are many different inputs we'll be looking at. A big part of that is community input, getting community feedback, both through in-person meetings, through virtual meetings, through surveys. We also want to have conversations with educators and students, sharing more information via our website. There's also information that was done before when we did processes like this. And then also engaging our board along the way, because it's our board that makes the decision ultimately. And so this is our path forward. It is not easy work, and I will name that there will probably be many different ideas and thoughts into how we do this. And we must take the inputs that we have and choose the best path forward. That doesn't mean that that will be everything that gets taken into consideration, but we want to be data informed. We want to learn from history and the past, and then also look to the future. And we've talked about the future of CMSD and think about the experience we want to provide all of our scholars. So more information will be coming in our January 2025. More information will be coming out, and then at board meetings, we'll be sharing more updates, as well as engaging the board along the way. So with that, are there any questions?
Are there any questions from board members? Ms. Welch-Howell?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the transparency on the long-term planning process. There's a lot that the team needs to do, so appreciate the clarity. As we think about financial sustainability, does the team have sort of a working definition of what we're working backwards from there? So if I think about page 16, right, like are we focused on getting that line 5, getting the red to black, or is it let's solve for, sorry, the page before that? Or are we focused on
You're talking about this one right here?
Yeah, that one.
Sorry, yeah.
Or are we more focused on the 27, 28, 28, 29 sort of bottom line cash balance? And I ask that because when I think about sustainability, I'm thinking about that line 5, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. Right now, what we're doing is we're looking at all the inputs and actually seeing what's feasible. In some cases, when you look at these numbers, I mean, 96 million is a big number. And I've heard people say before, "Oh, that's simple, either close schools or do this and do that." We've looked at even modeling, there's only a certain set of numbers, even when you're talking about school impacts. I think it's like $1 to $2 million. So you're thinking about $96 million there, $1 to $2 million per school. Closing schools is not going to close that gap. There's not enough, if we're talking about increasing the student experience, we can't necessarily cut our way through all the programming for this. And so it really needs to be a multifaceted approach where we're looking at the student experience we want to provide, looking at those inputs, and looking at our finances. And we will be coming back with more information about that. It may look like there is a part 1 to this in terms of what we do and how far that takes us, and then with some recommendations of what happens in the future.
Other questions? Ms. Peak?
I'm just wondering, when you talk about the student experience, what role would the community or community partners play in helping us to achieve that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Really taking in input. And there's already a lot of input that we've taken in. When you think about the CEO search, which now almost was about, heading into 2 years ago, 3 school years ago, we had the Listen and Learn tour that I did last fall. Those are inputs that we got a lot of robust community feedback on. There's also feedback we get just from board meetings or things that we hear on the ground when I'm talking to students through the Student Advisory Council, these lunch and learn. So there's a lot of inputs we have. So going to the community, it's continuing to listen to the community in terms of open-ended questions that the community may also have, but it's also going to the community with ideas based on what we've heard in the past and seeing how that resonates. And seeing what updates we have for them as well.
Yes, I was speaking in more in particular to our philanthropic community, our churches, our libraries, and our other institutions. Cleveland is in abundance with our cultural arts appreciation and things of that nature. So those kind of other organizations that are out there, we look into like after-school programs or maybe opportunities for kids to have hands-on learning experiences and things of that nature.
That's a great point and a great
hospitals as
suggestion of the different groups. So we'll take note of that. I'll also mention when we did the Listen and Learn tour, we actually did break it up by different groups, faith-based groups, our philanthropic groups, our sports leaders. And so we could also be thinking about those different groups as we're going back to them. And then I also hear from you behind your question that we're going to look into as well, where might other resources be. So I appreciate that.
Dr. Morgan, I have a question. You talked a little bit about how some schools don't have enough staffing for teachers to be a part of maybe a classroom level or a subject level team. how we've got what I would view as a severe shortage of Algebra 1, right, across our K through 8s. Can you speak to some of the context around how enrollment influences those situations? Because I don't want it to sound like people are making I don't think that principals are like, well, I hate Algebra 1, but understand, like helping people understand how the funding that comes with each student impacts our ability to staff and to offer different classes as we sort of think about how we make up for that and fix some of those issues.
Yeah, great question, and one that is complicated, and I'll begin to answer that now, and also we'll be sharing with you, with the larger community, specifically these analytics, because there's enrollment analytics. So I'll just state a few things that we know. One positive thing that is working for us is that enrollment within the system in terms of students who are choosing CMSD has been consistent over the last 5 years. So the group of students roughly that are choosing CMSD is about consistent over the past 5 years. And the group that are choosing private schools, also charter schools, has been consistent. So it's not necessarily competition that is hitting our enrollment. The other thing we know that's a challenging thing is that birth rates are significantly down. Birth rates are down not only within our city, state, country, the world, birth rates are down. And so we're seeing that, and that is showing an enrollment trajectory that over time will continue to hit us, and we have to think about that. As you know, we get our dollars largely based on how many students we have in the building. And we look at a high school, so I was meeting with Campus International High School, and those kids were so brilliant. They had a PowerPoint presentation. They had their different areas that they wanted to focus in on. And one of the areas they focused in on was really around the student experience. They said classes that they can no longer have anymore, not being able to have the foreign language. One young lady was concerned she wouldn't be able to graduate with her IB diploma. They also talked about staff that they see go, and also they talked about a staff that has 5 preps because there's not that many staff. I asked them how many students they have in their building, 227. When Campus International opened, it was more than double of that. And so what's happening over time when you don't have enough students in there, school leaders are making choices and schools are making choices in terms of what we can offer and what we can do. Also on that example around Algebra 1, I know that we have one elementary school that is offering Algebra 1 where 2 students qualify for it based on their NWEA score and based on other recommendations. And the only reason why that elementary school is able to offer Algebra 1 is because it's co-located with the high school. So those students can actually take it with high school students. That is not the case in all of our schools. And so this is the reality, and our staff, our school leaders are doing the best they can with the realities that are here, and we need to put the wind at their back. One, by defining the student experience we want for all kids. We have to define it. We have not put our plant in the flag, or our flag and planted it and said, this is the student experience we want to make sure every scholar has. And then also we need to be making these decisions in light of our current reality and future projections.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right. I want to echo Ms. Howell in saying thank you for this presentation, and just note that this is going to be quite the task and quite the challenge ahead of us in 2025. I know that this board and the CMSD team are up for the challenge. All right, next we will have public participation. During this segment of the business meeting, we will hear all public comment on either agenda or non-agenda items. This period of participation will be for persons who previously submitted the online request to speak form to address the board for up to 3 minutes each. We will have a timer on each of the screens on either side to help folks keep time. If anyone wishing to address the board has any written material that they would like to submit to the board, please give it to Mr. Britzloff over to my left, raising his hand, and he will distribute the material to the board. Again, as usual, we will limit each speaker to 3 minutes. All right, and today we have one speaker who signed up online, Ms. Roberta Cathcart. Ms. Cathcart.
Hello and good evening. My name is Roberta Cathcart, and I am a special ed paraprofessional at Joseph M. Gallagher. As a lot of you may know, I attend these meetings to advocate for paras, but this month I'm going to pivot and advocate for all students, especially scholars in special ed classrooms. In Dr. Morgan's last CEO focus letter, he says building a safe and supportive culture is at the core of our strategic priorities, and that means listening to our scholars. But when teachers advocate for the students who can't speak for themselves, teachers will first be told that children are being over-identified and proceed to plop a child with special needs into any classroom where they see fit. Take, for example, a particular child in my classroom. His response to any request is to first scream no, then he'll either charge at the teacher or throw something. If he's not doing that, he's running around the classroom doing everything and anything to be disruptive. So instead of actual teaching and learning happening, we're managing the behavior of this one student. The chaos usually causes the other kids to also act out, and eventually at least one student gets hit in the face with a hard object. This happens every single time the child is at school. How is this fair? Is this what equity is supposed to look like? This child has 4 professionals advocating for him: his teacher, his OT, speech therapist, and school psychologist. 6 if you include school-based admin. It is clear and obvious his current classroom is not the proper setting for him. Please tell me how one administrator who doesn't even know, let alone has seen or met this child, can trump the data of an entire team who has worked closely with this child. Even his mother made a call to the special education department, and their response, let's get him a one-on-one, because one more adult in our tiny classroom to add to the chaos is a great answer. So are you really concerned about the kids? Is this truly a safe and supportive environment you are striving for? I know that when I come to speak, my stories are all anecdotal, so what Mr. Bertzloff is going to hand you is an invitation. It's an invitation for you to come and witness the special education variety show. The 5th period lunch in Gallagher's modular cafeteria is the time and place, but you all are more than welcome to come for the pre-show and stay for an encore. But wait, this invite is actually a 2-for-1 deal. You'll not only get an in-depth listening session, but you'll also see for yourself how often some of our paras are being bitten, pinched, spat upon, etc., etc. The violence you'll witness will astound you. First graders as big as me with flailing legs and arms wrestling with any educator who tries to help them seems fitting in the new presidential administration, but these working conditions are neither safe nor supportive. I hope you all consider coming to see it for yourselves. Maybe, just maybe, this will prompt you to do something that will actually help these kids who far too often are being overlooked and getting lost in the shuffle.
Thank you, Ms. Cathcart. That concludes our public participation period. Next, the board will consider the adoption of 11 resolutions in the areas of Board of Education, Finance, and Equity and Culture. The board discussed all but one of these resolutions at our November 6th work session. Our December work session. The chair will now entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 6.01, extending collectively bargained labor agreements between the Cleveland Municipal School District and its labor unions for the time period of July 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2027. Thank you. The board discussed this resolution on December 3rd. Dr. Morgan, any further explanation?
Yes, over this past year, the Board of Education has approved 9 collective bargaining agreements with our employee unions. Each of these CBAs is for a 2-year period from July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2026, with an extension for an additional year from July 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2027. Conditioned on the district's ability to certify the availability of funds to pay for that 3rd year of the CBA. Since the 5-year forecast adopted by the board last month demonstrates the district's ability to certify the availability of the necessary funds to support that 3rd year, I'm asking that the board adopt this resolution extending each of our CBAs for an additional year through June 30th, 2027.
Thank you. Any discussion from board members? Hearing no discussion, Mr. Stockdale, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Ellicott,
Yes.
Mr. Billups, Mr. Briggs,
Yes.
Ms. Jones, Reverend Jones, Mrs. LeBron,
Yes.
Ms. Peak,
Yes.
Mrs. Welchow.
Yes.
Motion passes with 8 votes.
Thank you. The resolution is adopted. The chair will now entertain a motion to adopt the following 3 resolutions. 7.01, adoption of the fiscal year 2026 alternative tax budget of the Cleveland Municipal School District. 7.02, authorizing participation in the Cuyahoga County 2025 Real Property Tax Advance Program. And excuse me, my list of resolutions just shut itself down. 7.03, authorizing the distributions of resources to partnering community schools pursuant to issue 68 and issue 49.
Second.
Thank you. These three are our finance resolutions, which the board discussed at our December work session. Dr. Morgan, any further explanation?
Yes, Resolution 7.01 is a routine annual resolution whereby the board will be approving the requested fiscal year 2026 alternative tax budget to be filed with the Cuyahoga County, which the county uses to determine 2025 tax bills. The Cuyahoga County Budget Office and Fiscal Office will review CMSD's requests and make a final determination of tax rates. And then the board will be asked in March or April of 2025 to approve the final rates. The fiscal year 2026 alternative tax budget recommends 95.55 mils. Resolution 7.02 is a routine annual resolution whereby the board again authorizes the district's participation in this tax advance program, which enables the district to receive its real property tax receipts earlier than the otherwise scheduled settlement dates. Resolution 7.03 is a routine semi-annual resolution under the Cleveland Plan legislation adopted by the state legislature in 2012 and consistent with the issue 68 tax levy approved by the voters in 2020 and the issue 49 tax levy approved just last month. Our district distributes our local property tax dollars equal to 1.5 mil from the issue 68 and another 0.5 mil from issue 49 to our 11 partnering community or charter schools. With this resolution, the board will be authorizing that the distribution of those partnering of the funds to those partnering schools of 2.0 mils based on the local property taxes received from January 1 through June 30th, 2025.
Thank you, Dr. Morgan. Any questions, discussion from board members? All right, Mr. Stockdale, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Ellicott?
Yes.
Mr. Billups?
Yes.
Mr. Briggs?
Yes.
Ms. Jones? Reverend Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. LeBrun?
Yes.
Ms. Peak?
Yes.
Mrs. Welchow? Motion passed with 8 votes.
Thank you. These resolutions are adopted. The chair will now entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 8.01, authorizing the CEO to issue a supplier contract agreement to Energy Cap in order to maintain utility management services for the district beginning January 1st, 2025 through January 1st, 2026, not to exceed $96,851.84. Thank you. Dr. Morgan, any further explanation?
Yes, with this resolution, the district will contract with Energy Cap and be able to build on our existing practices in support of an energy management plan. With this plan, the district can utilize Energy Cap software as a single source platform for utilities that is flexible, accurate, and reliable in helping us make sense of energy and sustainability data in order to streamline the team's workflows. Managing utility bills from multiple sources can be a complex, time-consuming process. Streamlining data entry and validation reduces errors and duplicative entries, saving us time and resources for more strategic energy management tasks.
Thank you. Any discussion from board members? Mr. Stockdale, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Ellicott?
Yes.
Mr. Billups?
Yes.
Mr. Briggs?
Yes.
Ms. Jones? Reverend Jones? Mrs. LeBrun?
Yes.
Ms. Peak?
Yes.
Mrs. Welchow? The motion passed with 8 votes.
Thank you. The resolution is adopted. The chair will now entertain a motion to adopt the following resolutions. 9.01, authorizing the Cleveland Municipal School District to enter into an agreement with the Educational Service Center of the Western Reserve as provided by Ohio Revised Code 3313.845. And 9.02, expressing the intent to renew the sponsorship agreement with Citizens Academy Southeast.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. These two are our academic resolutions, which the board discussed at our December work session. Dr. Morgan, any further explanation of these resolutions?
Yes, with Resolution 9.01, the board will be authorizing the school district to enter into a service agreement with the Educational Service Center of the Western Reserve for services provided to students in the Passport program at the Metropolitan Center located in Geauga County. This is a continuation of services that was previously billed through the Education Service Center of Northeast Ohio. With Resolution 9.02, the board will be expressing its intent to renew our school district's community school sponsorship agreement with Citizens Academy Southeast. In our reapplication process review, the school received 129 points out of 150 points. If the board adopts this resolution, we will then negotiate a new contract with Citizens Academy Southeast to bring that to the board for your approval in the spring.
Thank you. Any questions from board members? Mr. Stockdale, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Ellicott?
Yes.
Mr. Billups?
Yes.
Mr. Briggs?
Yes.
Ms. Jones? Reverend Jones? Yes. Mrs. LeBrun?
Yes.
Ms. Peak?
Yes.
Mrs. Welchow?
Yes.
Motion passes with 8 votes.
Thank you. These two resolutions are adopted. The chair will now entertain a motion to adopt the following 4 resolutions. 10.01, authorizing the employment of teaching, non-teaching, and school-based administrative staff. 10.02, authorizing the reclassification of employees. 10.03, accepting the retirements, resignations, and other separations of employees. And 10.04, authorizing the issuance of limited contracts for differential positions and the payment of additional earned compensation to employees.
So moved.
Thank you. These 4 are our equity and talent resolutions, which we discussed at our December work session. Dr. Morgan, any further explanation?
Yes, with Resolution 10.01, it authorizes 50 new hires. Resolution 10.02 authorizes the reclassification of 34 employees. Resolution 10.03 accepts 102 separations of employees. And Resolution 10.04 authorizes limited contracts for differentials and payment of additional compensation to 246 employees. Further details of each resolution are set forth in the Exhibit A attached to each resolution.
Thank you. Any discussion from board members? All right, Mr. Stockdale, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Ellicott?
Yes.
Mr. Billups?
Yes.
Mr. Briggs?
Yes.
Ms. Jones? Reverend Jones? Yes. Mrs. LeBrun?
Yes.
Ms. Peak?
Yes.
Mrs. Welchow?
Yes.
Motion passes with 8 votes.
Thank you. These resolutions are adopted. Is there any old business? Is there any new business? All right. The next regular board meeting will be the 2025 Board Organization Meeting and Work Session on Tuesday, January 14th at 6:30 p.m. at Garrett Morgan High School, 4600 Detroit Avenue. The chair will now entertain a motion that the board enter into executive session for the purpose of considering the appointment and employment of public employees and officials, preparing for negotiations with public employees concerning the terms and conditions of their employment, and conferring with attorneys concerning disputes involving the Board of Education that are the subject of pending or imminent court action.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Stockdale, please call the roll.
Ms. Ellicott?
Yes.
Mr. Billups?
Yes.
Mr. Briggs?
Yes.
Ms. Jones? Reverend Jones? Mrs. LeBrun?
Yes.
Ms. Peak?
Yes.
Mrs. Welchow?
Yes.
Motion passes with 8 votes.
Thank you. The board will now move into executive session. Following executive session, the board will return to this room to briefly conduct some further business.
Power School honestly is a blessing.
You go to the website, you type in the access code, and you're in. Your kids' pictures are there, and you could easily, I have kids at 2 different schools, you can easily switch from school to school and keep up on top of it.
Everything's right there. Like, everybody always has their phone with them, so you can easily access it to your phone. Like, get on Power School.
It's a relief for me knowing that my child has the best chance that they can, knowing every day they wake up, they can go to school and, take advantage of the day. Power School, honestly, is a blessing.
You go to the website, you type in the access code, and you're in. Your kids' pictures are there, and you could easily, I have kids at 2 different schools, you can easily switch from school to school and keep up on top of it.
Everything's right there. Like, everybody always has their phone with them, so you can easily access it to your phone. Like, get on Power School.
It's a relief for me knowing that my child has the best chance that they can, knowing every day they wake up, they can go to school and, take advantage of the day. Power School.
All right, the board is now back in public session. The chair will now entertain a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the 3-day suspension of a non-teaching employee.
So move.
Thank you. Dr. Morgan, any explanation on this resolution?
Yes, this resolution is to authorize the 3-day suspension of a non-teaching employee for violation of district policies, procedures, and rules.
Any discussion from board members? Mr. Stockdale, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Ellicott?
Yes.
Mr. Billups?
Yes.
Mr. Briggs?
Yes.
Ms. Jones? Reverend Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. LeBrun?
Yes.
Mrs. Peak?
Yes.
Mrs. Welchow?
Yes.
Yeah, motion passes with 8 votes.
Thank you. The resolution passes. As announced earlier, the next regular board meeting will be the 2025 board organization meeting and work session on Tuesday, January 14th, 6:30 p.m. at Garrett Morgan High School. The chair will now entertain a motion to adjourn this board business meeting.
Second.
Hearing no objection, this meeting is adjourned. Good night, happy holidays, and happy new year. I look forward to seeing everyone in 2025.